Veronique has been researching issues related to the protection of civilians in CAR over the past, is it 6 months or so? And is scheduled to go there soon. But I know you've done a lot of reading, a lot of interviewing of people who are working there on these issues. And I wonder if you could, in light of what Jenny and Alison have just said, share some of your insights with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Alison and Jenny were very good at pinpointing some of those issues. And I'd like to just pick up on some of those. One of the non-traditional approach that has been taken in CR to try and contribute to the protection of civilians has been that bottom-up reconciliation, social cohesion approach. And I think that's something that's quite unusual or not as supported as it should be. It's actually now part of the protection cluster strategy, which is great, I think. And I think in that whole debate around relocation versus reconciliation, it's important to understand that reconciliation and social cohesion efforts are important to support in parallel to analyzing risk of imminent threats to those besieged populations. I'm also glad that the issues around very localized dynamics of conflicts and the type of violence that prevails in CR has been pointed out. And that also calls on this whole issue around emergency mediation and social cohesion. You're looking really at tensions within small villages, tensions within small groups. It's not your kind of large-scale conflict that you can see in other places. And that requires very contextualized approaches at community levels. So for me, that would be one of the insights, main insights that I got from my research so far. Another issue that also I wanted to point out was around the perception of peacekeeping troops in CAR. And there are many different nationalities represented in CR with the peacekeeping troops, and all of them suffer from slightly different perception from the local populations. And I think there's something there for MINUSCA to work on around how these different troops are perceived by the local population and what that means in terms of their ability to do protection in certain communities. And I think really MINUSCA should engage a lot more around communicating strategically around that issue and making sure that any tension that exists or any negative perceptions that exist is being addressed effectively. I mean, I think here the question is really how can you have a protection mandate and how you can implement it if the local population you're supposed to protect does not believe you're there for their own benefits and does not believe that you're on their side, if you want. So the impartiality of peacekeeping and impartial protection of civilians is very important in CAR, and it's something definitely that the peacekeeping operation should look at. And then going back to what Wendy said at the beginning around prioritization, and it's been clear from the beginning that protection was one of the main priority of MINUSCA, but I'm afraid that as time goes, there is a strong agenda around the political process from different countries. And I think there's a role also for the humanitarian community to continue advocating to ensuring that protection remains a priority, an effective priority on the ground, and the issue of elections and the political process does not take over and does not dilute the resources, especially since they're not, they're quite meager at the moment. Yeah, and I think the last point that I'd like to point out from the research that has been done, and it's almost, I mean, it's a lesson, I guess, to learn. But the crisis in Central African Republic started a year and a half ago. The Level 3 emergency was launched in December 2013. By then, you already had systematic targeting of civilians for months. And I think there's a lesson there to learn, or at least some kind of analysis to do around why the response was delayed. The protection crisis started well before December 2013, and those people prior to the Level 3 launch were not protected, and there was not an adequate response from the international community to protect those civilians. So as much as we're looking forward at the moment, and we're looking at how MINUSCA can improve the protection of civilians, there is maybe a little bit of work to do around how to not repeat this delayed, inadequate response to crises such as the crisis in CAR.
Thank you, Vera.